Listen, I need to be real with you about something that's been eating at me for weeks now, and honestly, by the time you finish watching this video, you're going to understand why thousands of WWE fans are losing their minds right now. Welcome back to WWE Frenzy, where we don't just report the news, we dive deep into the chaos that makes professional wrestling the most unpredictable form of entertainment on the planet. Before we get into what might be the most explosive Royal Rumble comeback in recent memory, make sure you smash that subscribe button because what we're uncovering today is going to have massive implications for WrestleMania season, and trust me, you don't want to miss a single update on this story. Now, let me take you back to a moment that still makes my stomach turn every single time I think about it. Picture this scene with me for a second. You're Seth Rollins, a guy who has literally given everything to this company, bleeding for this business, working through injuries that would have ended lesser men's careers, carrying entire brands on your back when nobody else could, and then in one night, everything you've built gets ripped away from you by a group that claims they're doing it for the greater good. The Vision didn't just attack Seth Rollins that night. They systematically dismantled him, piece by piece, in a display so brutal that even hardened wrestling fans had to look away. I remember sitting in my living room watching that episode, and my wife walked in during the attack and actually gasped out loud. She doesn't even watch wrestling regularly, but she knew what she was witnessing was different. This wasn't your typical beatdown. This was personal. This was calculated. This was a message being sent to the entire locker room that nobody was safe from the Vision's twisted sense of justice. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the silence that followed was deafening. For weeks, we heard nothing from Seth Rollins. No social media posts, no backstage interviews, no cryptic messages. Just complete radio silence. Meanwhile, the Vision has been running roughshod over Monday Night Raw like they own the place, taking out veteran after veteran, destroying legends, and basically telling the world that they're the new regime whether anyone likes it or not. But something's been happening behind the scenes that most people haven't picked up on yet, and this is where years of following this industry gives you an edge in reading the tea leaves. I've got connections, I've got sources, and I've been piecing together a puzzle that's about to blow wide open at the Royal Rumble. The clues have been there all along if you knew where to look. 3 weeks ago, a photo surfaced on Instagram from a private gym in Davenport, Iowa. Nothing unusual about that, right? Wrestlers train all the time. Except this particular gym is known for being the rehab facility where Seth Rollins has gone to recover from major injuries throughout his career. The photo was quickly deleted, but not before several eagle-eyed fans screenshotted and started sharing it in wrestling forums. 2 weeks ago, one of my sources who works in production at WWE headquarters mentioned in passing that they'd been working on some very interesting video packages lately, the kind that usually only get made when someone significant is about to make their return. They couldn't say more without risking their job, but the way they smiled when I pressed them told me everything I needed to know. Then last week, and this is the detail that really convinced me we're onto something huge here, the Vision cut a promo where they specifically called out Seth Rollins by name for the first time since the attack. Why would they do that unless they knew something was coming? These guys aren't stupid. They're calculated, methodical, and they don't waste words on people who aren't relevant to their plans. They know Seth is coming back, and they're trying to get ahead of the narrative. I've been doing this long enough to recognize a setup when I see one. Let me tell you a quick story that really puts this whole situation into perspective for me personally. Back in 2015, I had the opportunity to attend a WWE live event in Chicago, and Seth Rollins was working through an injury at the time but still performing because that's just who he is as a competitor. After the show, a small group of us were hanging around the arena hoping to catch a glimpse of some of the talent, and Seth actually came out and spent about 20 minutes just talking to fans. What struck me most about that interaction was how genuinely he cared about the business and about the people who support it. He wasn't putting on a show or playing a character. He was just a guy who loved wrestling talking to other people who loved wrestling. One kid asked him what he would do if someone tried to end his career, and I'll never forget his response. He looked that kid dead in the eye and said, "I'd come back twice as strong and make sure they regretted ever crossing me." That moment has stuck with me all these years, and now, seeing what the Vision did to him, those words feel almost prophetic. The Royal Rumble has always been about surprises, about those jaw-dropping moments that make you jump out of your seat and immediately call your friends to make sure they saw what you just saw. Remember when Edge returned after 9 years? Remember when John Cena came back earlier than anyone expected? Remember the pop that AJ Styles got when he was number 3 in that Rumble? Those are the moments that define careers and create memories that last forever. What we're potentially looking at with Seth Rollins isn't just another surprise return. This is a man coming back with a score to settle, with vengeance burning in his heart, with every intention of making the Vision pay for what they did to him in the most public way possible. And the Royal Rumble is the perfect stage for that kind of statement. Think about the logistics of it for a minute. 30 superstars in one match, chaos everywhere, bodies flying over the top rope, alliances forming and breaking in seconds. Now imagine the Vision is in that ring, standing tall, eliminating everyone who dares challenge them, looking completely unstoppable. The crowd is starting to turn because as much as people love a dominant faction, there comes a point where you need to see them get their comeuppance. The countdown starts. 10, 9, 8, and the anticipation in that building is going to be electric because everyone knows someone big is coming out. 7, 6, 5, and people are starting to pull out their phones because they can feel something special is about to happen. 4, 3, 2, 1, and then that music hits. You know the one I'm talking about. That opening riff that makes arenas explode. The place would absolutely lose its mind. We're talking about a decibel level that would register on seismic equipment. I'm getting goosebumps just imagining it, and I've watched wrestling for over 20 years. But here's what makes this potential return even more significant than just a cool moment. The story writes itself going forward. Seth Rollins versus The Vision isn't just another feud. It's personal, it's violent, and it has the kind of emotional investment that creates WrestleMania main events. You've got the architect going up against a group that thinks they're rebuilding the company and their image. You've got a man who has held every major championship in WWE facing people who want to prove they're the future. You've got someone who embodies what it means to be a workhorse in this industry against individuals who think they can take shortcuts to the top by taking out the competition instead of earning their spot. The narrative practically writes itself, and that's when WWE is at its absolute best. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You're sitting there saying, okay, this all sounds great, but what actual evidence do we have that this is really happening? Fair question, and I respect the skepticism because we've all been burned by dirt sheet rumors and speculation that turned out to be completely wrong. So let me break down exactly why I'm so confident this is the real deal. First, timing is everything in wrestling, and the timing here is absolutely perfect. Seth Rollins has been out for exactly the right amount of time for a major injury storyline without being gone so long that people forget about him. The attack happened in late October, which gives him roughly 3 months to sell the severity of what the Vision did while also being a realistic timeframe for someone of his conditioning to recover and be ready for a major comeback. WWE knows that 3 to 4 months is the sweet spot for these kinds of angles. Any shorter and it doesn't feel like the attack mattered. Any longer and you risk losing momentum. Second, and this is something I've noticed from years of analyzing WWE's booking patterns, they always protect big returns for premium live events, especially the Big Four. Royal Rumble is one of those events where they pull out all the stops, where they want to create those viral moments that get shared across social media and bring in lapsed fans. Having Seth Rollins return to get revenge on the Vision checks every single box for the kind of moment WWE loves to create at the Rumble. It's shocking, it's emotionally satisfying, it advances a major storyline, and it sets up programs for WrestleMania season. Third, follow the money and the promotional patterns. WWE has been very careful about how they've advertised the Royal Rumble this year. They're not giving away all the entrants like they sometimes do. They're keeping things close to the vest, building mystery and anticipation. That's not an accident. They do that when they have something big planned that they don't want to spoil. Additionally, if you look at merchandise trends, there's been an interesting uptick in Seth Rollins gear being restocked and promoted on WWE Shop over the past 2 weeks. Companies don't invest in pushing merchandise for someone unless they know that person is about to be back in the spotlight. Fourth, social media activity tells its own story if you know how to read it. Seth Rollins has been completely silent on Twitter and Instagram since the attack, which is highly unusual for someone who was previously very active on social platforms. But in the last week, he started liking posts again, not commenting or posting himself, but engaging just enough to let people know he's still there, still watching. That's classic WWE playbook for someone who's about to make a surprise return. They want to remind people the person exists without giving away the surprise. I've seen this exact pattern play out with Edge, with Cena, with multiple surprise returns over the years. The silence followed by small breadcrumbs of activity is always a telltale sign. Let me share another personal experience that relates to this whole situation. A few years back, I was completely convinced that a certain superstar was going to return at WrestleMania based on similar clues and patterns. I made a video about it, put my reputation on the line, and got absolutely roasted in the comments when it didn't happen. That experience taught me to be more careful, to verify my sources better, to look for multiple confirming pieces of evidence rather than jumping on one rumor. That's why I've spent weeks on this story, cross-referencing information, talking to multiple people, analyzing patterns, before bringing it to you. I don't want to waste your time with baseless speculation. When I tell you something is happening, it's because I've done the homework and I'm confident enough to stake my credibility on it. The potential matchup between Seth Rollins and The Vision also makes sense from a pure wrestling storytelling perspective. WWE has been building The Vision as an unstoppable force, which is great for establishing them as a threat, but every unstoppable force needs to meet an immovable object eventually. That's basic storytelling. You can't just have heels dominate forever without any consequences because audiences need catharsis. They need to see good triumph over evil, or at least see evil get challenged in a meaningful way. Seth Rollins represents the perfect challenge for The Vision because he has the credibility, the skill, and now the personal motivation to be a believable threat to their dominance. This isn't some random babyface getting fed to them. This is a former world champion, a Grand Slam champion, someone who has main event WrestleMania multiple times, coming for revenge. That's compelling television. Moreover, think about what this does for the Royal Rumble match itself in terms of structure and storytelling. Royal Rumble matches can sometimes drag in the middle, with filler entrants coming out just to eat up time before the next major moment. But if you plant the vision in the match early and have them dominating, eliminating everyone, building heat with the audience, you create a through line for the entire match. Every elimination they get makes the crowd want to see them lose more. Every cocky celebration increases the anticipation for someone to finally stand up to them. And then when Seth Rollins' music hits and he storms down that ramp with murder in his eyes, you have the payoff the entire match has been building toward. It's beautiful wrestling psychology, and it's the kind of thing WWE does better than anyone when they're firing on all cylinders. I also want to address something I've seen in the comments on previous videos and in various wrestling forums, which is the idea that WWE might be gun-shy about pulling the trigger on this return because they don't want to make it predictable. Some people argue that because so many fans are expecting Seth to return, WWE might swerve us and hold him off until Elimination Chamber or even WrestleMania. I understand that logic, but I think it's flawed for several reasons. First, sometimes the predictable thing is predictable because it's the right thing. Not every storyline needs a swerve or a shocking twist. Sometimes giving fans exactly what they want, when they want it, executed perfectly, is far more satisfying than trying to be clever and subverting expectations. We've seen WWE try to outsmart their audience before, and it often backfires spectacularly. Second, even if people are predicting Seth will return, that doesn't diminish the moment when it actually happens. Knowing something might happen and experiencing it are two completely different things. When that music hits and Seth comes through the curtain, the emotional response from the crowd is going to be genuine regardless of whether people suspected it beforehand. Wrestling fans are smart, they know how stories work, but they still pop huge for the moments that matter. Third, waiting longer actually hurts the storyline more than it helps. The iron is hot right now. The vision is at peak heat. The attack on Seth is still fresh enough in people's minds to create that immediate emotional connection. If you wait another 2 or 3 months, you risk that heat cooling off, you risk people moving on to other storylines, you risk the moment feeling less special because it's been anticipated for so long that it becomes anticlimactic when it finally happens. Strike while the iron is hot. That's Wrestling Booking 101. Now let's talk about what happens after the return, because that's equally important. Let's say I'm right and Seth Rollins does return at the Royal Rumble to confront the Vision. What comes next? This is where WWE has an opportunity to really deliver something special for the fans. The immediate aftermath should be chaos. Seth should go absolutely ballistic on the Vision, eliminating at least one of them, maybe two if they really want to make a statement. But the Vision should have enough members that they can regroup and eventually overwhelm Seth with numbers, eliminating him as well but only after he's made his point. You want that first confrontation to be intense but inconclusive, to leave fans wanting more, to set up future encounters rather than blowing the whole story in one match. From there, you build toward Elimination Chamber with a match, maybe Seth and some allies against the Vision in a traditional tag team format, or even better, you put Seth in the Elimination Chamber match for the world title and have the Vision cost him the championship, adding another layer to the personal vendetta. Every interaction should escalate the stakes, raise the intensity, and build toward the ultimate confrontation at WrestleMania. Because that's really what this is all about, isn't it? WrestleMania season. The Royal Rumble return is just the opening chapter of what could be a multiple-month storyline that carries us all the way to the showcase of the Immortals. Can you imagine Seth Rollins versus the leader of the Vision in a grudge match at WrestleMania? The video packages practically create themselves. The in-ring work would be phenomenal. The emotional investment from the audience would be off the charts. That's the kind of program that reminds people why they fell in love with wrestling in the first place. Something else worth considering is how this return affects the landscape of Monday Night Raw going forward. The Vision has been presented as the dominant faction on the Red brand, but they need a credible challenger, someone who can rally the locker room against them, someone who can make it feel like there's actually a chance they might be stopped. Seth Rollins is that guy. He's got the respect of the locker room in real life, which translates to being believable as a locker room leader in storylines. You can build an entire resistance movement around him, with other superstars who have been victimized by the Vision joining forces to fight back. That gives you multiple programs running simultaneously, keeps things fresh, and creates opportunities for younger talent to get elevated by being associated with a major angle. I've been running this channel for several years now, and I've learned that one of the things you all appreciate most is when I'm willing to put my neck on the line with predictions instead of just hedging my bets and speaking in vague generalities. So here's what I'm willing to say definitively. Based on everything I've researched, all the sources I've spoken with, all the patterns I've analyzed, and my understanding of how WWE builds these major returns, I am 90% confident that Seth Rollins will appear at the Royal Rumble in some capacity to confront the Vision. Whether it's as a surprise entrant in the Rumble match itself, whether it's a run-in during a Vision segment earlier in the night, or whether it's some other creative way of reintroducing him to programming, I believe it's happening at this event. The 10% doubt is just acknowledging that in wrestling, anything can change at the last minute, injuries happen, creative plans shift, and sometimes the best laid plans fall apart. But barring something unforeseen, we're getting Seth Rollins back at the Royal Rumble, and it's going to be incredible. What makes me even more excited about this is thinking about the ripple effects throughout the entire WWE landscape. A Seth Rollins return doesn't just affect his immediate feud with The Vision, it changes the entire complexion of Raw. It affects who might win the Royal Rumble match, because if Seth is in there stirring things up with The Vision, that creates opportunities for someone else to sneak out a victory while everyone is distracted. It impacts championship pictures because Seth is always going to be in the conversation for titles. It energizes the fan base and creates buzz that extends beyond just the wrestling bubble into mainstream sports media. That's valuable for WWE, especially as they continue to build their partnerships and expand their reach. Let me bring this back to why you're here watching this video in the first place. You're here because you love wrestling, because you love the drama and the athleticism and the storytelling and those special moments that give you goosebumps. The potential Seth Rollins return represents all of those things wrapped up in one package. It's going to be one of those moments where you remember exactly where you were when it happened, who you were watching with, how loud you screamed when that music hit. These are the moments we live for as wrestling fans. These are the moments that make staying up late for pay-per-views worth it, that make investing time and emotion into these storylines worth it, that remind us why we fell in love with this crazy business in the first place. Before I wrap this up, I want to make sure you're following along with everything we're doing here at WWE Frenzy because the Royal Rumble is just the beginning. We've got exclusive content coming about potential WrestleMania matches, deep dives into the backstage politics affecting various storylines, interviews with people who have worked with Seth Rollins about what makes him such a special performer, and so much more. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, smash the notification bell so you don't miss any uploads, and drop a comment below telling me whether you think Seth is returning and what you want to see happen when he does. The community we're building here is special, and your engagement is what makes it possible. Share this video with every wrestling fan you know because we need to get the word out about what's coming. The hype train for Royal Rumble is leaving the station, and I want all of you on board for what's going to be an incredible ride. Keep in mind that everything we've discussed today is based on analysis, pattern recognition, and information from sources, but nothing is ever confirmed until it happens in WWE. Things change, plans evolve, and Vince McMahon famously rewrites shows hours before they go live sometimes. But all the evidence points in the same direction, and when you've been following this industry as long as I have, you develop a sense for when something big is brewing. This is one of those times. The energy around this potential return feels similar to other major comebacks we've seen over the years. There's an electricity in the air, a sense of anticipation that's palpable even through social media and online discussions. Wrestling is at its best when it creates this kind of buzz, when people are talking and speculating and getting genuinely excited about what might happen next. That's the magic of this industry. That's why we dedicate our time to analyzing it and discussing it and celebrating it. Seth Rollins coming back to get revenge on The Vision is exactly the kind of storyline that can galvanize the fan base and create must-see television for months to come. So mark your calendars, clear your schedules, and get ready for what could be one of the most memorable Royal Rumbles in recent history. Whether you're watching with friends, whether you're streaming it alone, whether you're in the arena live, this is an event you're not going to want to miss. And when Seth Rollins' music hits and that place goes absolutely nuclear, remember that you heard it here first. WWE Frenzy called it, and we're going to be here to break down every single moment as this story unfolds. Thank you for watching, thank you for being part of this community, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue tracking this story and everything else happening in the world of WWE.